Naruto, God Level System Author, Blue Water God. Chapter 181, The Golden Wheel Reborn Explosion. Toadmaru, it's not like you being so panicked. I remember that when I faced my mother, I never saw you so scared. The voice of Otsutsuki Yue came from behind Toadmaru. Toadmaru, long time no see. Another voice came, saying hello to Toadmaru. Are you Otsutsuki Umura? Kamamaru turned around and looked at Otsutsuki Umura, and at the same time heaved a sigh of relief. This time may be saved, as long as a few of them join hands. They still can't believe it can't be fixed. Otsutsuki Umura, ha ha ha. Is it all here? Xianchen laughed wildly. A guy who was beaten to death by him can make waves when he comes. Don't talk nonsense, come and help me quickly, I can't hold on anymore. The White Snake Immortal shouted. Hearing that there is going to be a chat over there, he was very injured by being pressed and beaten by the clone. After the White Snake Immortal shouted, a wooden dragon bit his neck and frantically absorbed his chakra. The White Snake Immortal turned into countless small snakes, escaped the bite of the wooden dragon, and fought recklessly with the wooden clone again. Although Immortal White Snake said it was serious, he was indeed pressed and beaten, but to say it was dangerous, it was not too dangerous. Otsutsuki Yue and the others ignored the White Snake Immortal. Otsutsuki Yue first rescued Senju Piraeus and Uchiha Chang, which are two powerful fighting forces. Then Otsutsuki Yue turned into an afterimage and disappeared. His body appeared in front of Xianchen in the blink of an eye, and his fist trapped in chakra hit Xianchen's chest. Xianchen used Huangquan Hirezaka, opened a black cave, and instantly left the attack range of Otsutsuki Yue. Otsutsuki Yue's blow did not hit Xianchen, but bombarded the ground. The power was like a nuclear bomb washing the ground, and the ground was hit with a huge hole. You actually know Huangquan and Liangzaka. Otsutsuki Yue frowned, her expression ugly. Huangquan Hirezaka is the ultimate space ninjutsu. It can travel in any space and can be activated instantly. It is definitely the strongest in space ninjutsu. The three space ninjutsus of Kamui, Fulshen Tenzili can't compare to Huangquan Hirezaka at all. Otsutsuki Yue himself does not know this technique, but his younger brother Otsutsuki Umura knows this technique. Xianchen shrugged. In fact, his space teleportation was more useful than Huangquan and Liangzaka. Hamura, the other party is very difficult. Don't keep your hands, Otsutsuki Yue said. Otsutsuki Hamamura nodded and didn't speak. Maybe the two brothers had a good relationship in the past, but it's not the same now. Otsutsuki Umura also used Huangquan Hirezaka, appeared behind Xianchen, and stabbed the sharp blade of the Taoist jade. Time stands still. The leaves flying in the air stopped in midair, and the fight between the wooden clone and the White Snake Immortal in the distance was still, and the whole world was extremely quiet. Speaking of which, this is the second time I have used time to stand still on you. Hyuga slowly turned around and looked at Otsutsuki Hamura, who used Huangquan Hirezaka's sneak attack. It's boring. It's a pity to kill you like this. I still want to watch you struggle. Xianchen kicked Otsutsuki Umura back with one kick, releasing the stillness of time. Seeing Otsutsuki Umura, who flew back upside down and smashed into the ground, Otsutsuki Yue and Toadmaru both had stunned expressions on their faces. Don't talk about the two of them. Otsutsuki Hamura himself is very confused. He can't figure out what's going on. Why did he suddenly fly back upside down? However, his vigilance against Xianchen had already risen to the top, and the moves were so strange that he had never seen or heard of them before. Everyone has not thought about the ability of time in their hearts, and they dare not think about it. The two brothers Otsutsuki all looked at Xianchen with solemn expressions, daring not to attack again. You've all attacked so many times, isn't it my turn? Xianchen smiled lightly, and a dark blue chakra rose up from his body, wrapping Xianchen. What? Tensigan chakra mode. Feeling the familiar aura, Otsutsuki Hamura paled in shock. What Tenseizen chakra pattern? Otsutsuki Yue looked at his younger brother suspiciously. Otsutsuki Hamura did not speak. His body was tense, and he was extremely alert. He didn't mean to introduce Tenseizen to Otsutsuki Yue. Their relationship is not so friendly now, and it is not an exaggeration to say that they are enemies. Seeing that Otsutsuki Umura didn't say anything, Otsutsuki Yue was secretly angry in his heart, and at the same time, he transformed into a shield with the begging of the jade, and he was on guard. The move that would shock his younger brother, how could it be simple? The golden wheel is reborn. The golden lightsaber slashed, and the shield formed by Otsutsuki Yue with the Dao was instantly cut in half. There was a slight panic in Otsutsuki Yue's eyes. She used Suzu to protect herself, and at the same time used the repulsive force of Samsara to resist the rebirth of the golden wheel. The mighty Suzu is just like the one made of paper, and the repulsive force of Otsutsuki Yue can't resist the rebirth of the golden wheel. Fortunately, this also bought some time for Otsutsuki Yue to avoid the attack of the golden wheel, but he still had an arm cut off. However, this is not a big problem for Otsutsuki Yue. It is just an arm, and it will grow back in a moment. The resilience of the 6th level is so awesome. Otsutsuki Umura knew the power of the golden wheel reincarnation explosion, and when Otsutsuki Yue resisted, he used Huangquan Hirezaka to avoid it. However, the old toad, Toad Maru, is miserable. Although his speed is not slow, it is still not as fast as the speed of Jin Wheel reincarnation. In the terrified eyes, Toad Maru was swiped by the golden wheel reincarnation explosion. That rich golden light was the last seen in Toad Maru's consciousness. The golden wheel reincarnation blast cut the toad pill in half, and left an abyss that was several kilometers deep on the ground and could not see the edge. After seeing Toad Maru being killed, Xianchen manipulated the root of the divine tree, wrapped around the corpse that was divided into two by Toad Maru, absorbing the chakra and vitality that had not dissipated in his body. That big toad is dead, you stinky snake, don't struggle anymore. Xianchen suddenly turned his head and looked at Immortal White Snake. Immortal White Snake's expression was sluggish, and her movements stopped. With a thud, her huge body fell to the ground and was bound by the branches of the divine tree. What? This is an illusion? Otsutsuki Yue couldn't believe it, unable to imagine that the White Snake Immortal was actually managed by an illusion. The White Snake Immortal can be immune to infinite monthly reading, so it can be seen that the White Snake Immortal's resistance to illusions, but he is actually knocked down by a look. Otsutsuki Yue thought this was a joke, but this is indeed a fact. Xianchen's ultimate illusion has infinite reincarnation. As long as he does not have more than 10 times the mental power of Xianchen, he cannot break free. If Xianchen releases one on Otsutsuki Yue will also kneel. Senior Lu Dao, what should I do? Kaien Zupingjian came to Yue Otsutsuki and asked anxiously. His body was covered in bruises, and even the immortal body's powerful recovery ability could not be recovered for a while. Otsutsuki Yue's face is ugly. If you ask me what to do, I want to ask you. I really think of me as an omnipotent god. Chapter 182, 80 God Airstrike vs 80 God Airstrike. It's time for you two chickens with soy sauce to fall, otherwise I'll be an eyesore. Sun Xianchen took a step by step, walking towards Senju Pingjian and Yukai Hakang. Ah! Go to hell! Yukai Hakang shouted, using the power of the sky to come to Xianchen, and hit the head of Xianchen with his palm. Xianchen tilted his head, just avoiding Yukai Hakang's attack, and then a malicious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. With a billion volts of thunder and lightning wrapped around his hands, he used the softboxing method and the 361 Bagua style to perform a softboxing and electrotherapy attack on Yukai Hakang. In less than a second, Xianchen had already finished the 361 gossip, and even the two brothers Otsutsuki Yue could not see the speed of Xianchen's shot. The extremely fast attack speed made the air burst into electric sparks. Even Otsutsuki Yue couldn't see the speed of the shot, let alone Yukai Hakang. After Xianchen's attack was over, Yukai Hakang fell backwards with wide eyes. Seeing this, Xianchen quickly dug out his Samsara eye, and then entered his Tensagon space. Boom! Exclamation mark. Yukai Hakang's body exploded into blood mist, and a huge beam of thunder shot up into the sky, and then exploded with a bang. The deafening sound could be heard tens of thousands of kilometers away. A huge mushroom cloud rose up from the earth, and those who didn't know it thought that they had lost a nuclear weapon. No, it's more powerful than nuclear weapons. Except for the two brothers Otsutsuki Yue who avoided the attack in embarrassment, Kaien Zupingjian had already been wiped into ashes by the thunder. There was a bottomless hole in the earth in a radius of thousands of miles was in tatters, and even the sacred tree kept emitting black smoke. Cough cough. Otsutsuki Yue coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood, and his clothes smelled like a beggar. Otsutsuki Hamura wasn't much better, because it was too sudden, and before he could use Huangquan Hirazaka to avoid it, the attack had already enveloped him. After everything was over, Xianchen came out of the space, looked at the earth that was still emitting electric sparks, and smashed his tongue. Even he was surprised by this power. The attack power of the Thunder Fruit is really awesome. The Thunder Fruit has been developed by Xianchen to 1,000,000,000 volts, which is much stronger than Analu. Before, Xianchen continuously compressed the voltage of 1,000,000,000 volts in Yukai Hakang's body, and then let all these forces burst out in an instant. The power of this explosion surprised Xianchen. Isn't this Immortal Six Paths? Isn't it the creator of order? How can he become a beggar now? Xianchen mocked Immortal Six Paths. The villain is successful. Otsutsuki Yue said with a gloomy face. Huh? The villain is successful? Say what you want. I'm not a gentleman anyway. Xianchen smiled casually. A dying person. Will Xianchen have the same knowledge as him? Of course. Yes. Dare to call him a villain. Xianchen will definitely make his death very rhythmic. A flash of light flashed across, and Xianchen appeared in front of Otsutsuki Yue's body, and then punched his old face. Otsutsuki Yue's response was not slow. When Xianchen was about to punch him in the face, he raised his hand to resist Xianchen's fist and protected his face. With both hands firmly holding Xianchen's fist, Otsutsuki Yue's old face flushed extremely red. This power is too powerful. He feels like he is wrestling with ancient beasts. Xianchen smiled slightly, and then hit Otsutsuki Yue's stomach with his other hand. Otsutsuki Yue's eyes popped, and a mouthful of blood spewed out of his mouth, feeling that all his internal organs were shattered by this punch. The fist that hit Otsutsuki's stomach shone with golden light, and a huge laser beam pierced through Otsutsuki's body. Otsutsuki left the flying body and stepped back, and then spit out a mouthful of blood again with a wow sound, and supported her feet hard to prevent herself from falling. This time, Otsutsuki was seriously injured, and all his internal organs were burned by golden flashes, and he would have already died if he were a normal person. However, Otsutsuki is not an ordinary person. Such an injury looks scary, but it is not fatal to him. The vitality of the sixth path is so abnormal. Seeing his eldest brother's tragic appearance, Otsutsuki hesitated, then opened a cave in the air, trying to escape. Xianchen also saw his intention, and the gravitational force like a black hole erupted from his palm, pulling him back before Otsutsuki entered the cave. If you want to escape with Huangquan Hirazaka, why is this such an easy thing to do? Leave the Tensogun behind. Sun Xianchen said coldly. Too much bullying. Otsutsuki roared and punched Xianchen with both fists. In terms of physical skills, he was even stronger than Otsutsuki. In the face of Otsutsuki attack, Hyuga Tatsu was like a leaf, flying along with Otsutsuki attack. Even though Otsutsuki attack speed was beyond the limits of the human body, he still couldn't touch the corner of Xianchen's clothes. Otsutsuki felt a little aggrieved. This feeling of gathering all the strength, but hitting the empty space every time, is really uncomfortable. 80 God's Airstrike. Otsutsuki yelled, using this ultimate esoteric body technique that combines offense and defense. Xianchen laughed sarcastically, and then said, let's show you my 80th God Airstrike. Hyuga Tatsu's 80 God's Airstrike, and Otsutsuki 80 God Airstrikes confronted each other. The earth shook and the wind was raging. Otsutsuki quickly used the Taoist Jade to form a shield to protect himself, and looked up at the collision in the sky. Countless huge fists collided together, and each punch was a short kill blow, and there was no space for a mouse to escape. There was a constant roar from the sky, and the divine tree in the distance was blown by the gust of wind and swayed constantly. The collision between the two sides was even better than Xianchen. The giant vacuum punch he sent broke the fist of Otsutsuki and fell towards Otsutsuki mercilessly. Otsutsuki didn't have time to look horrified, so he quickly opened Tenseizen and used Tenseizen's chakra mode, in order to protect Dao in front of him. Kudao, an almost omnipotent invincible ninjutsu, was very embarrassed under the airstrike of the 80 gods, and the defense was broken in an instant, which made Kudao very embarrassed. The giant vacuum fist bombarded Otsutsuki with its mighty power. Under this kind of power that crushes everything, everything seems very weak. When Otsutsuki was hit, blood gushed out of his mouth, and he swayed it out without money. The giant vacuum fist smashed the ground with Otsutsuki, setting off a sky full of dust. Otsutsuki was driven into the depths of several kilometers, and his life and death were unknown. Otsutsuki in the distance, a trace of fear appeared in his heart. This is too strong, and I don't know whether is dead or alive now. It's not that Otsutsuki cares about his younger brother, but that he needs Otsutsuki to deal with Xianchen together. Otherwise, Otsutsuki wished that he died, and he was not blind, so he didn't see Otsutsuki escape. Chapter 183 Divine Light / Xianchen looked at the huge deep pit bombarded by the 80 gods airstrike, and he could clearly perceive that Otsutsuki wasn't dead and still had a breath of life. Although Xianchen didn't expect to kill Otsutsuki all at once, but he had to sigh, he is really an immortal little strong. Otsutsuki flew out of the deep pit, and then became unstable in the air, and fell down. Fortunately, Otsutsuki caught him, otherwise he would definitely fall and eat the mud. However, Otsutsuki condition is indeed very bad. His body has been twisted, and his bones are broken in half. Although the injury is very serious, as long as he is not killed by a single blow, he can recover quickly. This is the abnormality of the sixth path. Seeing Otsutsuki slowly recovering, Xianchen was a little speechless. The sixth path level is really a Xioqiang who can't be beaten to death. If Otsutsuki didn't enter the Tensian chakra state just now, Xianchen might be able to kill him directly. However, after entering the Tensogun chakra mode, Otsutsuki defense and resilience have all been enhanced several times, and he was forcibly resisted Hyuga-chan's 81-3 divine air strikes. If I have the devil's eye to die, I will hack you to death in minutes. Xianchen said viciously, looking at the almost recovered Otsutsuki. Would you like to have an infinite reincarnation and kill them directly? Xianchen thought while pinching his chin, or give them a moment to stand still and then kill them with a knife. Just when Xianchen was thinking, a dozen black spheres rose into the sky, and the majestic gravitational force pulled Xianchen. Xianchen looked at the rocks flying by around him, looked up at the dozen or so stars, and smiled disdainfully. The Earth Blast star cannot be said to be weak, but its weaknesses are somewhat obvious. The black chakra sphere is the source of gravity. As long as the black sphere is destroyed, the Earth Blast Star will also be broken. Xianchen stretched out his hand and smashed the black chakra ball automatically under the action of gravity without needing to aim. More than a dozen terrestrial stars were cracked like this. Otsatsuki Yue stared at it with a stunned look on his face. Does this look dumbfounded? Super Shinra Tanzing. The huge repulsive force came out, and the stunned Otsatsuki Yuya and Otsatsuki Yumura were hit, and the hard bones were shattered by the powerful repulsive shockwave. You can't go on like this. You have to find a way to defeat him. If you still have a whole card, take it out quickly. Otsatsuki Yumura looked at Otsatsuki Yu. Otsatsuki Yu's eyes flashed, and then he said, unless I take the 10 tails and let me become the 10-tailed man Jinchuriki again, I can still defeat him. Otsatsuki Yumura looked at his elder brother deeply, and said lightly, I will block him. You will absorb the power of the divine tree and become the 10-tailed person Jinchuriki. After finishing speaking, Otsatsuki Hamura didn't hesitate, clenched his fists and hit Xianchen. When you communicate in front of me, you don't take me seriously. Xianchen said rather unhappily. Saying everything in front of him? Are you looking down on him? Or are you looking down on him? Taking out the flowing blade that has not been used for a long time, it is like fire, and the cold light blade shines, and the sharp edge makes the skin tingle. Divine light slash. Xianchen raised the flowing blade like fire, and then swung it down. The invisible sword energy that could not be seen slashed towards Otsatsuki Hamura. After the sword chi had reached the front door of Otsatsuki Yu village, Otsatsuki Yu village was able to perceive the invisible sword chi. Otsatsuki Yumura hurriedly defended, but it was obviously a little late, and the invisible sword energy had already slashed on him. Otsatsuki Yumura's right arm was cut off, and his body was almost cut in two, and this was not the most important. The most important sword chi did not disappear, but turned into a small sword chi that could not be seen with a naked eye, pouring in the inside of his body as destroyed. Moreover, Sheng Wing Slash is the strongest sword technique created by Xianchen, and it also comes with a soul attack. Ah! Otsatsuki Hamura screamed, and then fell to the ground, unable to move at all. Otsatsuki Yu, who originally wanted to capture the divine tree, no longer cared about the divine tree, and hurried to Otsatsuki Yumura's side to protect him. Now the two of them are grasshoppers on a rope. As long as one is finished, the other is not far from death. Hamura, are you alright? Otsatsuki Yu looked at the pale and twisted Otsatsuki Yumura and asked with a frown. Otsatsuki Hamura didn't talk to him at all. He felt that his soul had been slashed by 1,000 swords. Now Otsatsuki Hamura can't even open his mouth in pain, let alone answer. Looking at the tragic state of Otsatsuki Yumura, Otsatsuki Yu frowned, completely incapacitated. Could it be that he was left alone with Xianchen? Otsatsuki shook his head without even thinking about it. Neither of them were Xianchen's opponents, let alone he alone. Just when Otsatsuki Yu was thinking about how to deal with Xianchen, Otsatsuki Yumura got up, and his face was covered in cold sweat. You go and grab the 10 tails, don't worry about me, Otsatsuki Yumura said through gritted teeth. It's not that he is selfless, but that he knows that if he doesn't kill Xianchen, they will die. Can you hold on? Seeing Otsatsuki Yumura's swaying appearance, Otsatsuki Yu was suspicious. Go quickly, or we will all die. Otsatsuki Yumura roared, and then rushed towards Xianchen. The golden wheel is reborn. The light saber formed by chakra slashed towards Xianchen. Oh Gautanyuan! Xianchen sneered. The 650 chakra light saber slashed through Xianchen, but did not cause any damage to Xianchen. What? How is that possible? Otsatsuki Hamura's eyes widened, looking at Xianchen in shock. The so-called impossible is entirely because your pattern is too small. Xianchen looked at Otsatsuki Yumura with dull eyes. There are all kinds of things. They are all ashes. The blades are like fire. The 6,000-degree explosion covered the Ryu blade UO fire, and the scorching temperature made the air scorching hot. Burn a city on fire. Xianchen waved his knife at Otsatsuki Yue, like the flames of his palm wrapping Otsatsuki Yue running towards the divine tree, trapping him inside. As long as he wanted to escape, he would be chased by a 6,000-degree flame. Otsatsuki Yue, who was trapped in the flames, was sweating hotly, but just as he was about to rush out of the flames, he felt a sense of danger. Otsatsuki Yue, who believed very much in her own feeling, did not rush over rashly. She made a mark on her hands, and Otsatsuki Yue's body entered another space. Although Otsatsuki Yue does not know the ultimate space mystery of Huangquan Hirazaka, it does not mean that he does not know other space ninjutsu. Relying on space ninjutsu, Otsatsuki Yue broke away from the encirclement of flames and went straight to the divine tree. When Otsatsuki Yumura saw this, he didn't care about terrifying Xianchen, ignoring the reincarnation of the golden wheel, and rushed up to hold Xianchen. Chapter 184th Pupil Technique Chang Lizun. You dare to grab my things in front of me. If you really succeed, how can I mess around in the future? Xianchen looked at Otsatsuki Yue who was close to the divine tree, and said coldly, "Let's get rid of your troublesome guy first." Tensing repulsion. Haixianchen looked at Otsutsuki Hamura, who was madly attacking him. Strong repulsion and gravitational force acted on Otsutsuki Hamura's body at the same time. Otsutsuki Hamura was attacked by the gravitational force, feeling that he was about to be crushed into powder. In order not to be squeezed into blood, Otsutsuki Hamura used repulsive force to fight against Haixianchen's repulsive force. Glancing at Otsutsuki Hamura, who was unable to move, Haixianchen stretched out his hand to aim at Otsutsuki in the distance, and a tyrannical gravitational force erupted from Haixianchen's hand. Originally only one step away from the divine tree, Otsutsuki, who had a smile on her face, changed wildly, and her figure was forcibly pulled back by Haixianchen. Otsutsuki made a seal on his hands and wanted to use space ninjutsu to escape the gravity, but the surrounding space had been frozen by Sun Xianchen, and his space ninjutsu could not be used at all. Otsutsuki could only helplessly watch himself getting further and further away from the divine tree. Before Otsutsuki could counterattack, Haixianchen came to him. The blade in his hand was dancing like a fiery flame, and the sword light all over the sky shrouded Otsutsuki. Haixianchen's knife was too fast, and Otsutsuki couldn't keep up with Haixianchen's swing speed, leaving holes on his body, and the blood had completely dyed him red. Despite the danger of being cut in half with a single knife, Otsutsuki finally escaped from Haixianchen's attack. Taking a deep breath, Otsutsuki face was extremely ugly. Did he really want to show his trump card? After thinking for a moment, Otsutsuki was firm. If he didn't even have a small life, what's the use of keeping his trump card? Tanchenlizan! Otsutsuki shouted, and the momentum on his body skyrocketed. In just a short period of time, Otsutsuki strength soared tenfold, and his strength was incomparable to before. Looking at Otsutsuki who exploded, Haixianchen spit out in his heart. No wonder Otsutsuki Kaguya can be sealed. It turns out Otsutsuki is also the protagonist, and it exploded at a critical moment. Otsutsuki's eyes were extremely cold. As soon as he stepped on the ground, he rushed straight towards Haixianchen, and his speed was comparable to the speed of light. Haixianchen waved his hand to block Otsutsuki's fist, and was blasted several hundred meters away by the powerful force. What a powerful force! Haixianchen's expression turned serious, and the current Otsutsuki already had the strength to make him face it. "Is this your reincarnation eye pupil technique?" Haixianchen asked curiously, but he already knew the answer in his heart. "That's right, this is when I opened my Samsara eye. The awakened pupil technique, Danchenglizan, can enhance my strength tenfold in all directions." Otsutsuki said proudly, "Strengthening 10 times the strength, so against the sky?" Haixianchen was stunned. He thought that his awakened pupil technique was already the most against the sky, but Otsutsuki's pupil technique was not weaker than him at all. "It's really interesting, ha ha ha." Haixianchen Yangshan laughed, looking at Otsutsuki greedily. If he devoured his Samsara eye, wouldn't he be able to get this heaven-defying pupil technique? Thinking of this, Haixianchen's eyes glowed with blood. Originally, Haixianchen would not let Otsutsuki, and now he will not let him go. Being stared at by Haixianchen's greedy eyes, Otsutsuki was very uncomfortable. "Give me your eyes, and I might spare your life." "Be presumptuous, die for me." Otsutsuki was furious, and hit Haixianchen with a monstrous palm. Haixianchen did not flinch. He also wanted to see how much the pupil technique of Danchenglizan could increase, and whether Otsutsuki was bragging. This time, Haixianchen gathered all the strength of his body in the palm of his hand and slammed it against Otsutsuki. Otsutsuki was repelled several kilometers by the powerful force of Haixianchen, and Haixianchen was also repelled by several hundred meters. "Ha ha ha, really strong enough," Haixianchen said with a big smile. Previously, Haixianchen could hoist Otsutsuki and beat him without using all his strength. Now, with all his strength, he was repelled. This shows how much Otsutsuki has strengthened. Otsutsuki wasn't so happy anymore. Her face was as gloomy as water. Relying on Chakra's explosive power and his own physical strength, he actually fell into a disadvantage in the confrontation with Haixianchen, who only relied on physical strength. He couldn't believe how strong Haixianchen's power was. Maybe he could kill him before with a few punches. With just a few punches. Otsutsuki was very unwilling and jealous in his heart. He was the ancestor of the ninja, who created the ninja sect with one hand and passed on the chakra, but was surpassed by the younger generation. While jealous of Haixianchen, he also felt embarrassed. However, the current situation does not allow him to think too much, because Haixianchen's blade has already chopped over. Otsutsuki took out his 16 sticks and collided with Haixianchen's flowing blade. The 16 sticks of Otsutsuki were not created by yin-yang dun, but were made of unknown materials and were extremely hard. In the collision with the extremely sharp, 6,000-degree explosive flames, there was no damage. Haixianchen's swordsmanship is like a streamer, and the angle of attack is very tricky, making people unable to react at all. Even Otsutsuki, whose strength has been increased tenfold, can only be tired of resisting such swordsmanship. Facing Rixianchen's fiery blade, Otsutsuki Ua did not dare to let Rixianchen hit, especially the vital parts. Otherwise, being slashed by a knife carrying a 6,000-degree explosive flame, although he would not be hacked to death with a single sword with his strength, it would definitely not be better. The clanging sound of swords and soldiers colliding. Rixianchen and Otsutsuki Ua have been fighting fiercely for several hours. At this time, Rixianchen didn't have the slightest tiredness on his face, but became more and more excited. But Otsutsuki Ua was already dead. Although Chang pupil technique was abnormal, his consumption was also very abnormal. Even though Otsutsuki Ua's pupil power and chakra are almost infinite, they are not really infinite, and under such crazy consumption, they can't hold on anymore. After attacking with Rixianchen again, Otsutsuki Ua lifted the pupil technique of Tian, and then used the immortal mode to absorb natural energy, barely resisting Rixianchen. Rixianchen kicked Otsutsuki Ua with a random kick, feeling a little bored. Before Otsutsuki Ua hadn't lifted Tian, Rixianchen still felt a little interesting, but now Rixianchen can solve him with a few tricks. It looks like you've run out of skills. Rixianchen shook his head in disappointment. The silver wheel is reborn. Suddenly, a loud shout came from behind Rixianchen. Chapter 185. The powerful Six Paths Suzu. The silver gravitational storm swept towards Rixianchen like a gust of wind. Six Paths Super Jade Spiral Shuriken. Rixianchen turned his head and threw out the two huge spiral shuriken in his hand, colliding with the silver wheel reincarnation explosion. After a stalemate for a while, the silver wheel reincarnated and dispersed, and the two weakened spiral shuriken flew towards Otsutsuki Hamura. Otsutsuki Hamura didn't hesitate, and immediately used Huangquan Hirazaka to leave the place. In the moment when Otsutsuki Hamura left, the spiral shuriken fell, leaving a deep sinkhole on the ground. Otsutsuki Hamura, who escaped this blow, was covered in cold sweat. If he was really hit, he might have been beaten to ashes. Otsutsuki Ua and Otsutsuki Umura stood side by side, watching Rixianchen vigilantly, feeling slightly bitter in his heart. They have paid attention to the ninja world for so many years, but the pervert of Rixianchen is like popping out of a crack in a stone. There was no information about Rixianchen before. The key point is that the strength of Rixianchen who popped out is too perverted. Originally, they thought that after sealing their mother, they would be invincible in the world of ninja, but suddenly Rixianchen slapped them in the face. Not only did they beat them in the face, but now they want their lives. Why don't we just stop here? I won't interfere with you, and you shouldn't violate us. Otsutsuki said in a deep voice. Huh? Are you kidding me? Do you think I can let go of the fat in your mouth? 723 inches. Rixianchen looked at Otsutsuki with a foolish look. Otsutsuki U's old face flushed red and was extremely embarrassed. Don't think that I have nothing to do with you. I just don't want the fish to die. Otsutsuki Ua said angrily. The fish is dead and the net is broken? Huh? It's just you? Rixianchen glanced at him disdainfully, his eyes full of contempt. Otsutsuki U's anger rose in his heart, and he was so high above the world for so many years. When was he looked down on so much? You hold him first, Otsutsuki Ua said, and then his expression became serious. Otsutsuki Umura is upset. What is he doing to hold back Rixianchen now? Is he taking the lead? Otsutsuki Umura no longer wanted to continue fighting. He wanted to take the opportunity to leave. Even if he left the earth, he had to avoid this plague. I can't hold him back anymore. You should do it yourself, Otsutsuki Hamura said lightly. Otsutsuki Ua was furious when she heard the words, and a cold glow appeared in the purple samsara eyes, and then quickly subsided. Rixianchen looked at the two of them with interest. If the two of them fight, it will be more interesting, Rixianchen thought while rubbing his chin. But this is just to think about. No matter what kind of grievances the two of them have, they will not conflict at this time, because there is still the great enemy of Rixianchen in front of them. Hamura, you have to think about it. You think you can escape in his hands? Otsutsuki Ua squinted slightly. An old fox who has lived for more than 700 years, how could he not understand Otsutsuki Umura's thoughts? Yes, thank you for your reminder. I can't let you run away. Otsutsuki's words also reminded Rixianchen. Space blockade. Rixianchen shouted. The space fluctuated invisible, and then returned to normal. Now the entire space has been blocked by Rixianchen, and no one can use space ninjutsu except him. In this way, they are not afraid of escaping. Although they can catch up with Rixianchen, it is too troublesome. Otsutsuki Hamura tried to use Huangquan Hirazaka, but the result made his face very ugly. The space that could have been easily opened has not moved at all. There is also Otsutsuki Ua with an ugly face. The space is blocked, which is not good for him, which means that his original ultimate card is no longer available. Hamura, gather the strength of you and me to break the space blockade, otherwise we will only be trapped to death. Otsutsuki looked very serious. When Rixianchen crushed him with strength before, Otsutsuki Ua was not as flustered as he is now, but now Otsutsuki Ua is indeed flustered. This time, Otsutsuki Hamura didn't say anything, just nodded silently. Six Paths, Suzu. Otsutsuki Yui used all his strength to displace Suzu, and his body size has exceeded 10 tails. Damn it, can Suzu be so big? Xianchen looked at the tall Suzu and had to sigh. But why is he stronger than Otsutsuki Yui? But can't use such a tall Suzu? Xianchen thought about this question quietly, perhaps because he had never tried it before. At this time, Otsutsuki Yumura also moved, and the chakra on his body was continuously transmitted to Otsutsuki Yui, making the already huge Suzu even bigger. Just stand on the ground and let the ground sink. The huge Suzu clenched his fist and swung it out, but instead of attacking Xianchen, he hit the empty space. Although the size does not mean the strength is strong, but the strength of this Susanoo is very strong. This punch hit a huge air cannon, and even the space blocked by Xianchen made a shattering sound of relief. Xian for Mu done, thousands of hands, top-level transformation. How could Xianchen tolerate the Suzu pretending to be forceful and using the ultimate move of Mu done? Compared with the great Buddha among the thousand-handed pillars, Xianchen used a much taller, 10 times stronger strength, with countless arms. Hit Suzu. Boom. 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 Fists and palm prints slam down, like a violent storm. There is a saying that 2 fists are invincible to 4 hands, and the thousand-handed Buddha does not know how many palms. But all of them are knocked down together. Every punch was like a falling meteor, and even though Lidao Suzu had a strong defense, his armor was shattered. After one round of attack, the 6 paths and Suzu were almost tattered, and the arms of the thousand-armed Buddha were all broken. Generally speaking, no one took advantage. Seeing that the attack of the thousand-hand Buddha was completed, the 2 brothers Otsutsuki Yui just wanted to breathe a sigh of relief, but the arm of the thousand-hand Buddha grew again and launched the next round of attacks on Suzu. When the 2 behemoths banged against each other, it was Earth Lord who suffered, and the poor Earth Lord was beaten with pits. Otsutsuki Yui, who didn't want to be beaten passively, shouted loudly, ignoring the fist of the Mu-dun Buddha, gathering all the strength of the 6 paths and Susanoo to swing this sword. The long sword carrying the sky-shattering force, slashed down at the Mu-dun Buddha. Before the knife fell, the huge sword energy had already cut off the arm of the great Mu-dun Buddha, until it slashed on the body of the great Mu-dun Buddha. This powerful knife slashed through the great wooden dun Buddha like cutting tofu, slicing the huge wooden dun Buddha in half diagonally. Xianchen used the repulsive force to repel all the dust from the storm, and looked at the huge Lidao Suzu in surprise. He didn't expect that this Lidao Suzu was more violent than the Mu-dun Buddha, and could cut the Mu-dun Buddha in half with one knife. What Xianchen didn't see was that the 2 brothers, Otsutsuki Yui, among the Susanoo, were out of breath, and it was obvious that this blow was very expensive. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, where you can find advanced audiobooks that hasn't been uploaded on YouTube till now. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.